One of the CISOs, who's a friend of mine, recently said to me, like, no one knows how to secure AI. And I think that that's like true, unfortunately. Yeah. This is a moment of reset. This is a moment of like massive change on many levels between like the data management stuff, between the generative AI stuff. The next 5 years are going to be wild.
I think you're scaring a lot of L1, L2 people as you say that. I think, is she trying to hint that our jobs are gone? Like...
No, I wholeheartedly believe that we need the people involved. And being an L1 has always been a rite of passage, but only because it burns you out and you're miserable. You know? The structure evolving to detection engineer as opposed to an L1, L2, L3 is something that should stay consistent regardless of AI.
Right. How has detection kind of kept on with this?
We see a lot of teams that are starting to look at observability data as their foundation detection surface for AI agents.
Security operation team is probably the most disrupted with AI. If you have been watching a lot of the AI disruption that's happening across cybersecurity, you probably would have come across how SOC specifically is being disrupted. How SIEM, how log aggregation, XDR, EDR, they're all up for disruption with AI. To have a look at this particular problem with a closer look and quote-unquote analyze this, I had Allie Mellen. She's a principal analyst at Forrester. And we spoke about the transition, how the traditional L1, L2, L3 is probably not the right way to approach security operation in an AI world. How do you vet the marketing noise from signal in a world where people are trying to solve the SOC problem with AI? How far can we really go versus what the reality is? How do you prepare and build a SOC team today in 2025 with AI being so prolific? And how far can you plan ahead? All that and a lot more in this conversation with Allie Mellen. If you know someone who's working on the security operation problem, whether it's to uplift it or trying to build a new one, definitely check out this episode and share with others who are trying to tackle the same problem as well. And as always, if you're here for the second or third time and have been enjoying the episodes of Cloud Security Podcast, I would really appreciate if you take a quick second to hit the subscribe or follow button for listeners on Apple and Spotify, or if you're watching this on YouTube or LinkedIn. I really appreciate this love and support you show us. So thank you so much for supporting the work we do by hitting that subscribe, follow button. And I hope you enjoy this episode with Allie. I'll talk to you soon. Peace. Hello and welcome to another episode of Cloud Security Podcast. I've got Allie with me. Thanks for coming on the show, Allie.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
Yeah, and on my second time here as well.
I know, it's great.
There seems to be a pattern if people haven't recognized it yet. But could you just give a brief introduction about yourself, your professional background? We'd love to hear that.
Definitely. Yeah, so I am a principal analyst at Forrester Research. I cover SIEM, SOAR, security analytics, as well as nation-state threats, XDR, EDR, and generative AI and security tools. So I already mentioned generative AI in this conversation.
I know, wait. I mean, we haven't even gotten to start the conversation. Well, I'll bring Gen AI later on again. But because you work in that XDR SIEM space as well, obviously we had the same conversation about where that is in 2024. How much of it, or maybe a better way to put this is, how do you describe security operations and all these tools around in 2025? What's your viewpoint on that?
It's changing so much. I just did the security analytics platform wave, which is our SIEM wave, and it was released in June. And it was just incredible to see the differences, like comparing even from the last one, which was 2022, so many market changes. Everything is changing there. The XDR vendors are getting into SIEM in a very real way. A lot of customers are very excited about that. So it's just been fascinating to see. And then on the other side of things, for customers who want like a lot around data management and data strategy, they are like, how do we use a data lake for a long-term storage? How can we manage some of the costs that way, but also keep the data in a place where we can still access it for SIEM use cases? So it's very complicated, but the market is just, I'm excited about it because I think we need a little bit of a mix-up, and now that's coming.
The new challenges are coming in.
Exactly, yeah.
Because I think you mentioned the cost associated with the SIEM as well, which is definitely top of mind for a lot of people. As being a CISO before, I've kind of realized there used to be conversations about how much log should we really send to a SIEM, and how much log is enough that we still find an incident. And if we were to go down the rabbit hole, we find all the parts we need without causing us to have like $1 million bill or whatever.
Yes.
So why has that tension still continued to be a case in 2025 with SIEM platforms?
Well, I think there's a couple of factors, right? The first, and I think most important, is that you don't want to miss data that you really need in an incident. And so having access to all that data, it's like, let's just bring it all in and deal with the cost and suck it up. Not fun though, and not something you want to do long-term. I think it's also really difficult to determine your detection coverage and the detection surfaces that will make up your detection coverage. And so a lot of times you're like, I'll bring in all this data. I won't necessarily like cut any of it down because I just want to make sure that when I build new detections in the future, I have the data that I need. Now, there's a lot changing, which is very cool because now we have these data pipeline management tools like the Cribbles of the world, Databon, 10-0, those types of things. And what's really neat is not only can you reduce the amount of data that you're bringing in, route the data to different locations, but one of the advancements that's happening there is you can kind of draw a correlation between the rules that you have and the data you're bringing in. So you can actually more fine tune the data that you're bringing in based on the specific detection use cases that you have.
All right. So being able to slice and dice the data the way you want is actually possible now.
Yes, it's so much more powerful than it was. It's not just like send it all there. It's like you can reduce the amount of data that you're bringing in. You can route it to a different location. That's one of the biggest use cases that we see a lot of teams doing. The data reduction is the immediate cost savings. The long-term use is now we can route the data in a bunch of different places. And then even like redaction, tokenization, you can do all of that with the data as well. So the tools that we have now are so different than what we had before and so much more advanced. And now it's more about, okay, how do you think about this strategically and have the knowledge that you need to make the best decisions for where you want to bring the data?
Is that where the traditional SIEMs have failed us in a way?
Honestly, yeah. Because a lot of it was just, okay, let's just set up a log collector and bring in all the data. And even for a long time, a lot of the SIEMs in the market wouldn't even tell you if the log collection wasn't working. Like you wouldn't get a notification. So how do you even know if you're bringing in the logs that you need?
Yeah.
And so this is really cool because it's bringing these really great data collection and manipulation features so that you can actually make better decisions. But, it makes sense that the traditional SIEMs wouldn't have wanted to do that because it affects their pricing.
Of course, yeah. I mean, and because you're charging them for storing the data as well in the first place. That's where the redirection of data.
Yes.
So, and you mentioned data lake as well. And I guess that's usually looked at as a concept from the other side of the planet, which is basically, hey, I'm doing data analytics and all of that. So are you finding that people are building security data lakes as well?
Yes.
Okay.
We have a lot of security data lakes cropping up. It's been like the panacea of, if we could just keep everything in this long-term storage and have it be cheap. But especially with like Amazon Security Lake and what they've done with the open cybersecurity schema framework, just the ability to standardize the data a little bit and access it at a low cost. Cribble is also doing this with Cribble Lake. There's a lot of different options. Even Microsoft just recently released, this is still within Sentinel, but their data lake tier of storage, which is much cheaper. It's just expensive if you want to bring out the data and use it. And so that plays directly into the conversation about data storage and data cost optimization.
Yeah.
And the way that teams had been doing this prior was they were like, okay, we're just going to throw in an S3 bucket or we're just going to like throw it into Azure Log Analytics.
Yeah.
And the SIEM vendors were always like, no, thank you. We can figure out a way to still make money off of this.
Fair. And actually, because one other thing people talk about is just the difference in the depth. There's one thing for it to be able to detect everything, for you to be able to query it. The other challenge on that side was flexibility and being able to have some kind of a depth of coverage, for lack of a better word.
Yes.
In terms of like me as a SOC analyst, I would not even know sometimes what I'm looking for, especially if it's a cloud environment or God forbid an AI environment. They're trying to figure out what log is relevant. Like Ashish said this, that he wants a salary upgrade. Is that like a hack? I don't know. Like, could be anything. So is that also playing a role in this?
Definitely. Because it's also, one of the things that has made this so difficult is the SIEM is not just a detection and response tool. There's also the compliance reporting that you can do with it. There's the dashboarding. There's the use cases for vulnerability management and threat intel and threat hunting. And so there's so many different things you need data for. And you have so many different stakeholders that you have to deal with. So making those kind of data decisions, like you need a dedicated person to be making the data strategy decisions, especially if you're in a large organization.
I almost feel like what you're suggesting is there's a reset coming for the SOC teams, the way they operate and work today.
This is a moment of reset. This is a moment of like massive change on many levels between like the data management stuff, between the generative AI stuff. The next 5 years are going to be wild.
Interesting. Because obviously we spoke about this topic of how to build a SOC team in 2024 last year. And now we're in the second black hat. We're talking about how that's basically the entire thing is going to be reset.
It's crazy. The shift has been so crazy because I am like a huge AI skeptic.
Okay.
I anytime I see AI, I'm like, I don't believe that you're actually doing
And
this.
yet you've mentioned AI like 20 times already.
Okay,
We're like 5 minutes into the conversation. You're like, I'm a skeptic, but I just mentioned it 20 times.
Well, this is the thing. This is the first time I'm actually excited about it.
Oh, right. Okay.
So now it's like we're off to the races with it. And I do think that like the things that we're seeing now are going to fundamentally change how security operations teams use it.
Okay.
And to that point, it's also going to be a matter of changing how the team operates as a whole. Like I still think, and I believe this wholeheartedly, that like detection engineering is extremely important, but this does kind of change the difficulty of detection engineering, detection coverage, when you have agents that can like serve as a threat intel agent or start building detections for you or start evaluating the environment for where there might be gaps. Like that's where we get into a new level of like agility and speed for the security operations team.
Yeah. I think you're scaring a lot of L1, L2 people as you say that. I think, is she trying to hint that our jobs are gone? Like,
No. Okay, that's the thing. I wholeheartedly believe that we need the people involved in this. Yeah, I know. I go back and forth on this. I'm actually kind of curious your perspective on this because sometimes I'm like, oh, how is this going to change the L1 role? Like, what are the skills they're going to need to develop? Because it's not going to be the hands-on type of experience that we're used to. And then I'm like, well, we've been dealing with technology making these changes forever, right?
Yeah.
What do you think of that? Do you think that this is like...
No, I would love to hear your response for it, but I think I personally definitely feel a lot of us have gone through similar changes. Our parents have gone through similar changes. Like my dad used to be a typist and I don't do typing. I think I remember him. The only reason I know that is because I found a notebook which had all these weird symbols on it. And I'm like, what is that? And he's like, it's called shorthand. And I'm like, what is shorthand? And he's like, come on, like, you don't know? I'm like, no, I don't, but you type all day. I'm like, yeah, but I don't type shorthand, whatever the shorthand is. So I think him and I but I got to discover that he had gone through transition from being a typist, being a actual full-time job, to that fact that someday, you don't need to do that anymore. Like we've gone to the point where I can just voice record myself. It translates that into a transcript and does all of that. So I feel like the SOC teams who are level 1 today, I don't think they have anything to be afraid of. There's a whole thing about whether super intelligence and everything else can actually completely do what we want to do.
Yeah.
But if I were to bring it back to the real world where we're not a super intelligent AI is there right now, as the level 1 would be doing better things with their job in hand. Instead of going through 10,000 alerts and figuring out, hey, which one of these 10,000 alerts that I go through every day is a false positive versus not, we're definitely at a point where you can triage it to an extent where the 10,000 reduces to, say, 100 or 200 or whatever that list may be, because it doesn't have the context of everything else. So you can safely assume that a lot of the job now for, if I was a level 1 today, is that time saved for me not being frustrated by my on-call duty or whatever that thing was. And I'm not being frustrated by the fact that I see the same thing again and again.
Yes.
It's just different applications. How can I just... and being able to pattern recognize, we can see that if we could see 10 things. We can't do that when we see 10,000 things, which is where AI can help amplify that amazingly. I think to your point, I'm excited for that perspective of that AI usage in our scenario. And I definitely find there is a transition that's going to happen where level 1 would become level 2, because that entire field is now almost like they existed because that was not a solved problem.
Yes.
When that is a solved problem, people are now, hey, machine is taking care of that. I don't need a human for it. I want the human for the next job above.
Yeah.
How do I add the business context into it? How do I make sure that the potential 5% or the 1,000 alerts that it discovered is potential vulnerable? How do I add some context into it? Can I learn detection response? I think we had a conversation yesterday for the AI security podcast with the researcher from Microsoft who's doing some threat intel work. And he was talking about Microsoft is releasing a tool where anyone can become a reverse engineer using LLMs. And reverse engineering is one of those things I used to be like, I even made a confession during the episode. I was like, I tried for one hot second and I was like, this is not for me. I'm like, I'd rather be something else than this. And but he's saying that the bar is so low that if you have some context, and most L1 pretty smart people,
right,
technical people, I think they're just going to graduate to L2. But obviously you have your perspective on how the L1, L2, L3 may not even exist. So I'm curious to see what you're seeing.
Yeah, I think that it's a great point. And I think that's one of the reasons why when I look at the AI tools today, I'm like all about explainability.
Yeah.
Because I think we do have a challenge here where, unfortunately, a lot of these tools have been marketed towards like new analysts. I don't agree with that at all.
Mhm.
I think that's a huge mistake because they're wrong sometimes.
Mhm.
And we don't need we don't need our L1s to be learning from something that's wrong.
Yeah.
And thinking they can trust it. But I do think that once we get to the point where these can really start to make a difference, it's going to almost be like QA. Like you're going to be walking through the steps and being like, is this actually doing what's expected? Is this returning what I want? And then making the determination and doing the response, because we should never be automating that, with like exceptions for where you're okay with some risk.
Yeah.
So I do think it's a big opportunity, and my hope is that it like lets people focus on things that are more important. And
Mhm.
also, to your point, like being an L1 has always been a rite of passage,
Yeah.
but only because it burns you out and you're miserable. You know?
Yeah.
And so if we can remove that, that's a good thing.
Yeah, I think many people don't even move to L2 because they're just so sick of it. They're like, is there
literally.
anything else I can do? Though I don't have to be awake at odd hours.
Oh, the number of people that I've seen leave the industry and be like, I have enough that I can go into tech and have a very cushy job now.
Yeah.
So I might as well just do that instead.
Yeah, and not have to be awake at odd hours and try to figure this out at 3 a.m. in the morning for why is this thing publicly available?
Yeah.
Why was this not stored by developers to begin with? Yeah. So, but do you find the structure needs to change or evolve for that?
I do think so. Like I still think that the structure evolving to just a more of a like detection engineer as opposed to an L1, L2, L3 is something that should stay consistent regardless of AI.
Right.
Because the teams that we see do that, they just up-level people so much faster. And now, especially if we have the AI that's able to pull all of this context in, they can up-level faster as well. And so I do think that breaking down that structure is very important, turning them into detection engineers so that they are not only responding to these alerts, but also helping to optimize and improve them and build new detections is where we start to see that infinite loop of improvement that we really need to start seeing. And then once they're detection engineers, that's where they can start to experiment with like, I want to look at threat intel for this detection. I want to do a threat hunt and see if I can find something that's worth turning into a detection, that type of thing. And we actually get them into the interesting stuff.
Yeah, that's music to my ear. Obviously, we had the conversation with the Microsoft person on AI Security Podcast. We had a conversation at BSET SF with the detection response team at Anthropic. And I think Jackie Bao episode is on there as well. And she was talking about how they're using hallucination as a feature to identify new kinds of detections. Like,
oh my God.
Yes. And I'm like, oh, tell me more. What do you mean? I think I love the explanation where as humans, we are tuned to certain kinds of patterns. Hey, I know there's an XSS here or sequence injection, whatever the specialty needs to be. Maybe I can identify that with my eyes closed. But I don't know what new patterns exist. There are new kinds of complexity, new kind of connections. And the way herself and her team are using it is like, hey, why not just let it decide what the new detection should be? You can still be a human in the loop and go, hey, this actually doesn't make sense. But then she said, every now and then there's one feature like, I did not even think that's a possibility.
That's cool.
That almost makes you feel that what we have been calling out as a shortcoming potentially is a feature that we just don't market it as a feature. We just talk about, oh, it's hallucinating, so it's all bad. But in certain scenarios, that's actually a feature.
Oh, yeah. It can teach you a new way of doing things, which is kind of crazy.
100%. But to your point, if most people would become detection engineers and up-level themselves, where do you, and maybe, I guess, how is AI being used in SOC today? How much of it is reality versus a marketing fluff?
It depends on the vendor you talk to.
Yeah.
I will say that the majority have like query language translation from human language to whatever query it is, or have incident summarization. So you can see what's going on in an incident in a human readable way. They have a chatbot. But to me, these are the least interesting use cases. Like when that was coming about, I was like, okay, AI is not going to do very much for us. The really cool stuff is in the investigation and triage agents, the agents that are domain specific. They're responsible for the task of like, we're going to triage or investigate a phishing email, and we're going to give you a recommendation.
Or just that, like very specialized.
Very specialized.
Okay.
And the specialization is actually so important because what we really need is, it's kind of like a microservices approach to AI, where you have a bunch of individual task agents that do specific things, but that's all they do. That's all they know how to do. That is their responsibility. Yeah. And they don't have to be special purpose models even. Yeah. It's just the prompts that you're giving them ahead of time are very specialized to the task.
Yeah, yeah.
And so once you have that, you can not only have them interacting, but that's when you can start to build an agentic system where they're talking to each other and helping make decisions that way. So that's how you maintain the efficacy. Now, there are a couple of different vendors, especially in the XDR and SIEM space, who have released AI agents that are doing triage and, in some cases, investigation. We're not really at the point of agentic, despite what all of the messaging in the world will tell you right now.
Oh, wait, we're not. I mean, it's like blew everyone's mind. Like there is no agentic.
Yeah, right. Go figure. But it is really interesting to see some of the early AI agents and the impact that they're having. Now, I'll caveat all of this with efficacy is incredibly important because, to your point, like hallucinations can be good. They can be bringing about new ways to do things, but not if you're going to be building an agentic system.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe because you could have them interacting, but you still want one of these guys that's very accurate.
Overseeing it, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's one of the biggest questions that I'm asking is, one, what's the explainability like? Is there an opportunity for you to look at the steps that the AI took and then potentially like rerun something and be like, this step was incorrect. You're going to rerun it until you get it right, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then the other part of that is, how are they doing testing? And this is where a lot of this falls apart, unfortunately. There are exceptions, which is why I'm still excited about it. But in a lot of cases, it's either, we have a thumbs up, thumbs down.
Okay.
And we're crowdsourcing accuracy, which to me is a nightmare because they're marketing this to new people in the field. Yeah. And then they're expecting them to give the right response as to if it's right or wrong.
Yeah.
Makes no sense.
No, yeah.
But others are doing like more of a golden data set approach where they'll run the golden data set through, have like 500 different responses that they gather, and then manually by the person compare, is this an expected response or not? Because the response can be different and still be right.
Yeah.
And so that's a step in the right direction, but still it's so manual and we don't really have the automated testing infrastructure to do this at scale. The exception to this is with some of the service providers, because they typically have pretty talented staff who have done this for a long time, and they're responding to these alerts day in and day out. And so they are the ones who at scale can look at the responses from AI and say, yes, this is what I would have done, or no, this isn't. And so they can do testing in like a much bigger way, do QA in a much bigger way.
Yeah, and I think I definitely relate to the word that we're not truly agentic in a lot of ways. And I'm sure people would fill the comment section for, you're not truly agentic and this is true agentic or whatever. But I definitely find that people are also open to the idea of being quote unquote agentic, whatever the version is today. So to what you said as well, are you finding that the 2024 version of what people were trying to sell as, hey, this is where agentic is and what it is today, are the customers smarter about this as well? And I'm sure there's a marketing on the other side, but are they also smarter about the fact that, hey, that sounds like bullshit?
I think that security, maybe I'm just biased, but I think security people are unique in that they tend to be very technical or also very skeptical.
Yeah.
And so it's very rare that I run into someone that like is trusting exactly what people are saying about AI. That said, I get a lot of questions on it. And it's a lot of like, okay, what is real and what's not real? Not because they can't figure it out, but because they don't have time to be sifting through all these messages.
Yeah.
And like we at Forrester do so much research on this. Like one of the biggest benefits for me is it's not just me like going crazy behind a keyboard writing up something. You know, we have a lot of analysts that only cover AI.
Yeah.
And so I interface with them regularly to be like, back me up. Is this right? Is this wrong? Is this a way that I should be approaching this? We have a definition of agentic AI from that team that I also collaborated with them on. And so it helps a lot because I don't have to do everything alone. And I can also get that validation of like, am I just talking crazy right now? Or is
am
this
I just
something
my
real?
echo chamber? Just
Exactly.
whatever. Oh, fair. Wait, so what is your definition of agentic AI then?
Yes. So agentic AI is when you have AI agents working together in an autonomous way, multiple of them. Now, we see that across disciplines, whether it's security or product management or marketing, there's a spectrum of this, right? There's the AI agents that are standalone, or maybe they're working together, but only really through like an automation or orchestration platform. It's still very brittle. Then you get to this next point where the AI agents can work together with specific other agents to accomplish things. And then what the team considers the mecca, I'm not convinced, but they still have to convince me, is where AI agents can work with any other AI agent and come to the decisions that they need to come to. And that's kind of like they call it the executive agent approach.
Right. Or the judge or whatever you want to call it, I guess. Yeah, there's a few names for it, yeah.
So LLM as judge is so interesting to me because it's very, I still feel like it's so aspirational. It's like, okay, you're having something that's sometimes wrong, deciding if something else that is sometimes wrong is right. And it's just like, I don't know. So I do see some teams using it with success. I see other teams that are struggling. Now, the other thing that I'll say is like, one of the reasons that I am excited about this is because I've talked to a couple of customers who they're building their own LLMs for their security team, and they're building them to be triage and investigation agents. And so to me, when I see a team that's successfully doing this in an end user environment, that's where I'm like, okay, there's something to this, you know, because they can't justify it otherwise.
Yeah.
That's been kind of cool.
And I think I'm glad you mentioned it because I definitely find agentic AI to be, at least my definition matches yours. So I'll give you that. And I'd also agree on the super intelligence and everything else. And, people apparently we can record an entire episode as per some people on just super intelligence, what it should be. And there is something above that as well. I'm going, okay, clearly I'm in a crazy world these days. But I also find that these days, to what you said, the structure of security operations is changing. Yes. The environments are different now. It's just not agentic AI, but there's agentic workflows. How far has detection come for just understanding AI-related threats? There is one thing for me to, I guess, last year we were primarily talking about things like I've got security vulnerabilities in my cloud environment, security vulnerabilities in my, AppSec, in my functions and everything else. Now it's basically all of that, plus I have some agents floating around as well, which have their own identity and everything else. How has detection kind of kept on with this?
So it's a great question. I'm very glad you asked it. One of the CISOs, who's a friend of mine, recently said to me, like, no one knows how to secure AI. And I think that that's like true, unfortunately. Yeah. That said, we did just release a framework that I'm really excited about, which is like a big collaboration between a lot of our analysts. It's led by one of our analysts, Jeff Pollard, and it's called Aegis. So it's our framework for securing AI agents and agentic AI. And one of the core 6 pillars is detection and response. Mm-hmm. And so I'm very excited about that, but also it's so daunting because it's so much more complicated, which is actually, this is one of the reasons why I recommend detection engineering so much, is because detection engineering is ultimately about aligning to the processes that the product team has, the processes that you would expect from the cloud, and making it so that you're able to iterate at the same pace and capacity as those other functions. And so it's about keeping up with them. And now to this end, when we talk about detection and response within these AI agents, a lot of it comes down to how are you looking at the observability data that you can get? Because that's a very important starting point to determine, is there something off here that is either, okay, maybe it's an issue with the agent, or maybe it's a security issue with the agent. And so we see a lot of teams that are starting to look at observability data as their foundation detection surface for AI agents. And there are other detection surfaces within that. It's not just that, but especially for those that you're building in-house, that's a good starting point for like, what should normal behavior be? What should not so normal behavior be? But it is so new that I don't see a lot of teams that have figured out quite how to balance detection and response with some of like the QA or the just identifying issues that are not really security issues with the AI agents themselves.
I think something to add there, and I'm sure you would have observed this as well. A lot of people are using cloud providers to build their AI capability or application or whatever. And we had this conversation with a healthcare company. Very fascinating that they're using AWS and Azure to build their AI capability. And in the conversation, I think the episode should go out soon. But in the conversation we came across was, there's actually not enough proper logging available for AI as well, in terms of, to your point about detection can be done on logs that you're producing. But if you don't even know what you're producing is AI or not AI, and I think that's where that is a gap in the market at the moment, where
Yeah.
a lot of people believe that if I buy a vendor, then hey, all my AI problems are solved. But then if you take a step back to what you said, people who are in the enterprise building their own AI embedded applications, one of the things they're not even talking about is the fact that there's not enough logging available for you to even identify which one.
Yes.
I mean, we spoke about SIMs before, that hey, which log should I take? Over here, I get a ton of logs, but whether it's the right log and for the model that I care about or the model that we're building and the application, I'm like, we haven't even opened that Pandora box. Have you kind of seen any of that as well?
It's so true. It's so complicated. Like, a couple of years ago, I wrote a report with one of my other colleagues on how to do detection and response for homegrown applications.
Mhm.
And to me, it's the same thing where it's like, it's so manual.
Yeah.
It takes so much interfacing with the AI team or the application team to even make a determination of what good looks like and what
Yeah.
good doesn't look like. It's very tedious right now. And
Yeah.
then you put on top of that in a lot of cases, the agents that are being built, especially if they're interacting with MCP, like there's so many security issues there in and of itself. And typically the permissions that they're getting from an identity perspective are way higher than they should be. Like
Yeah.
we talk about this in the report as least agency
Mhm.
and ensuring least agency. And if you're not there, then doing detection and response is going to be miserable. It's going to be miserable because you're going to have so many false positives. You're not going to know what's going on. So yes, 100%. It takes a lot of hardcore detection engineering work right now because it's not standardized.
Yeah.
There's too many issues from a protection and identification standpoint, let alone getting to detection and response.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's gonna take time.
Yeah. We don't even know how. Can we isolate a AI application? I don't even know if you can actually isolate the LLM, or like, do you just call up OpenAI and go, hey, hey Sam, I'm just wondering if you can let me just hook up my server here for 2 seconds, and I'll be. I definitely find. We spoke about instant response as well yesterday. I think I personally definitely feel we didn't speak about instant response in the cloud context. It's been decades of it. And now we're in this world of AI. We haven't even caught up with the cloud world of instant response, but now we have another vector there.
It's so true.
Yeah. And so as much as I would not like to be a skeptic in this context, how far, you mentioned that AI people, I guess people are doing AI, using AI. Are SOC teams already using AI in the conversations you're having for maybe they may not have the most modern SIEM or XDR or whatever with the AI capability, even if it's the one which just gives you a chat information? Are you seeing people starting to adopt AI within SOC teams as well?
Yes. There's kind of two sides to this. First off, I totally agree with you on the cloud front. Like that is one of the things. And this is why I think security operations and like detection engineers are going to have jobs for a long time to come. It's because we're constantly finding new detection surfaces that we have to track, and it's a mess. But on how SOC teams are using it, I have seen SOC teams using it, which is really exciting. I will say it's mostly like large enterprises who want to experiment with this.
Yeah.
But that's one of the things that's been so validating to me is like, I've been like, you guys are not going to like these features. They're not that exciting. And then they come back and they're like, yeah, we don't really use them. The exception, so the chatbot is interesting because when I saw the chatbots originally, I was like, this sucks. Like, who's taking time out of their day to go and use this? It's a novelty. Like, they're going to do it for 5 minutes and then they're never going to look again. The exception has been Gen Z, who has been using it a lot more.
Really?
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
Interesting.
It's so interesting. And I think it's twofold, right? First off, obviously, they're more exposed to chatbots than other generations, and good chatbots, not just like what we remember 10 years ago.
It's and I
terrible.
guess they're primarily on messages. They don't have a call. They're texting
Exactly.
you. Like, why are you calling me the text message? I'm like, well, for you to answer the phone. But anyway, So, okay.
There's that angle. But I think also, since they're newer to the field, they have more questions that they want to ask. And so they're trying to understand, like, okay, what does this threat actor typically do?
Yeah.
Looking at product documentation, like, how should I approach this particular thing? So that's been interesting. But overall, again, those features haven't been the value add for what they're costing. Now, I do think that's going to change with the triage and investigation agents. That's what I've heard from the customers that are using it, but it is much less than the other features, which are more standardized.
Yeah.
And also, like, one of the things that we saw in the wave was, I think there was one vendor at the time that had triage and investigation agents out of all 10 that were included. And these are the 10 biggest, most important providers in the market. So it's new, we're just starting to see it, but it's definitely something where we're seeing the value out of that far more than some of these other features.
Oh, yeah, I'm glad you called out the part where SOC teams in large enterprise are primarily the ones because they have the time for it. Because
Yes.
everyone else is primarily being bogged down by 10,000 alerts that they have to look out for as well. So, how do people who are building SOC teams today? I feel like we almost need an updated version of the 2024 one now, where if I'm a SOC leader or a CISO trying to build a SOC team, even if it's to outsource it or even if it's to build in house, what am I looking for in my SOC team that I'm building? Like, I guess, what's some of the things you recommending people? I feel like in a large enterprise, this primarily would be a SOC uplift, but maybe we can start there. What
Yep.
should a SOC uplift consider in terms of things they need to plan for? Where are we going with this? What's your thoughts there?
I think, fortunately and unfortunately, now it has to be people who are interested and actively using AI. Like, this is, I think we talked about this last year as well, which is like, AI isn't going to replace you in security, but if you don't use it, someone is going to replace you because
Yeah.
they're using it well.
Yeah.
And so that unfortunately needs to be a fundamental part of this is like, what is your aptitude and willingness to start adopting AI? And then, of course, like the typical skills, like I think we're going to see constantly that those types of skills around like network fundamentals, OS fundamentals, like a clear understanding of technology is critical. And then on top of that, like if you're starting net new, I always recommend trying to get someone as senior as you can, obviously, because you're going to need that type of support. It's very difficult, but for the uplift scenario, it is like we talk about T-shaped people. So people who have empathy, that's kind of the cross, is like, do they have empathy and understanding for other disciplines? Because that's very important, especially in like an incident response scenario. I can't tell you the number of times that I've had employees come to me and be like, the incident response team just doesn't care about me at all. And they're kind of like, they're sitting there feeling all this dread because they caused an incident. And the IR team is like, we're out. You know, not great. But then the experience and the actual knowledge is the other part of the T, where it's like actually understanding how computers work and what a threat actor typically looks like, and having that ability to grow and learn more and has a foundation, a solid foundation that they can build from at least. We try very hard to recommend to clients wherever possible to look for that aptitude and to focus on, instead of focusing on who you're going to hire, focus on how you're going to upskill the people that you do hire, because it makes such a bigger difference. Because at the end of the day, everybody needs something or is missing some component. And that training is so fundamental. And we see that in the data too. We actually, one of the questions we ask every year in our security survey of like thousands of security decision makers is, what factors into your purchase decisions when it comes to products or services? And one of the main things is consistently the training that's available and whether it's actually high quality. Unfortunately, in most cases, it is not. But when it is, people love it. And it helps the team so much. It's a requirement for the team. You have to take this vendor's training for this particular thing. And it makes a huge difference for them.
And I guess to your point, it's a great career move for that individual as well, because they get into whatever company certification on their resume and all of that as well.
Exactly. And it's great for the team because they're coming up in this company. First off, that company took a chance on them when they maybe didn't have the experience. And also they are ideally in a detection engineering structure, they have mentors who are the people who are more experienced, and then they become the mentor. And so not only did they learn all of this, did they get all this training, but then also they feel connected to the team because they are a part of the team and a part of up-leveling people on the team.
Yeah. So to your point, should the leaders in SOC teams plan for how do I uplift my current team? And I guess in an AI world, which is already complex, where would you say they should focus on in terms of, I don't know if technology coverage is the right word, because to what we were talking about, there's already a lot of marketing around agentic AI and how much is truly agentic versus what you can really do with that today. Would you say for people who are making decisions today, they should definitely consider AI capability in either in their own, either building it in their team or having a tool or a vendor solution that actually has that, which is not just a chat feature, although Gen Z would require that. But you know what I mean. So it's like that's where do you find that where should they focus on as, hey, if I'm making a purchase decision today, what should I must have in my decision tree? Are there any top 3 or that comes to mind?
They need to be evaluating the AI capabilities for sure. Like I can't stress how much of a pivot point this is for security operations and how much this is going to change like the speed at which we're able to respond. And especially like do the investigation, do the triage.
Yeah.
And we're going to see it on the other side too, right? Like if we're building these agentic systems, the attackers are eventually going to do this as well.
Yeah.
It's going to start with nation states. We probably have like more years than we think we do, but it's going to be very interesting to see how they approach like much more dynamic exploits, much more dynamic identification of vulnerabilities, much more dynamic privilege escalation. Not even talking, I'm not even like going to the
0 day or whatever, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that's realistic, right?
Yeah,
because AI is just really good at finding patterns and things that's already happened.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, like most organizations have something that is not patched the way that it should be, or multi-factor authentication isn't working on this particular system, isn't implemented, and that's what they're going to be looking for.
Yeah.
And so I think that evaluating the generative AI capabilities is fundamental. I think the second piece of that is the analyst experience is so important right now and is going to be so important because of that explainability element that comes into play. And then I do think automation actually remains very important in this conversation and is something that security teams should be thinking about. Because if you have outlined incident response processes and you know the steps that you're supposed to take, you're able to automate them. One of the areas I think is really compelling for what's going to happen with generative AI is the SOAR playbook enabling the analyst to customize when they want to actually invoke the generative AI tool. Because you could just have your typical SOAR playbook, and then at the end, you're like, I want to call out to an LLM and have it do these 6 prompts. That's very useful and it's very customizable, as opposed to what's being built into vendors, which is like they're just doing what they think is best.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that as well. And thank you for answering the technical questions. I've got 3 fun questions, which you've done before. So I wonder if your answers have changed now. First one being, what do you spend most time on when you're not trying to solve the security operations problems of the world?
Good question. So I love to read. I have a ban on reading right now, but I'm not holding to it because I'm writing a book. So I'm like,
oh, fair.
If I read, I'm spending all of my time reading.
Oh, okay, fair.
But I love to draw. I've really enjoyed drawing lately, especially like going to a park. New York has been so nice this summer, and
nice.
drawing, lovely.
Sit in a park, have your canvas, and just like draw.
Exactly, yeah. And there's so many people. There's a tennis court near me. It's great. It's a great experience.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Second question: what is something that you're proud of that is not on your social media?
Oh, something I'm proud of that's not on my social media. Any of my social media?
Could be anyone, yeah.
I'm thinking about my answer last time, and I'm like, not again. I am actually really proud. This is interesting because like I grew up and I was not into cooking. I was really into baking, but I was never into cooking. I've gotten so into cooking and I'm really enjoying it. And like my grandfather is Italian. He's from Italy.
Yeah.
He came to the US when he was young and he is a chef. And so he had his own restaurant.
Right.
And I have been taking a lot of his recipes and doing them for dinners and things like that. And I'm actually like, I'm loving it. I'm having so much fun. I'm very proud when I can, like, I'll test out some meals and then I'll make them for my friends. And that's like such a treat for me. And especially like full course meals. So I want to like make the dinner. I want to make the dessert. Like I'm getting the crunchy bread. It's really nice. So I've just loved doing that lately.
Interesting. I look forward to the invite, I guess.
It's so meditative.
Yeah, I'm like, a grandfather recipe coming into the picture as well. I'm like, oh.
Actually, I listen to a lot of podcasts, including this one.
Oh, there you go. I'm like, okay, there you go. I mean, I look forward to that. Final question. What is your favorite cuisine or restaurant you can share with us?
Okay. So last year I said steak, which is still true, but I am just so into sushi right now. I'm just loving sushi. Yeah, I'm just loving it. And especially like hand rolls, very into like the little, like not quite poke bowls, but very similar, like a smaller version. There's so many good sushi spots in New York too, especially omakase.
Really?
Out of this world. Out of this world. It's so good.
Interesting. I'm going to be in September, so I need to
there
take that from you.
Hit me up.
I will hit you up as well.
I'll take you out to omakase. say?
I will. Wait, we want to do the grandfather recipe first before we jump straight to like a Michelin
That's
star
fair.
chef.
Oh my God. I can't wait. I have the perfect recipe.
Oh, perfect. Right. Where can people find all the work you're doing and connect with you and all of that as well?
Yeah, definitely LinkedIn is the best place. I love to chat with people on LinkedIn, hear from them. I also have my Forrester blog, which I post to very regularly. So both of those places and Substack.
All right. I'll put those things in there. But thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. This is always so fun.
I always enjoy it. So thank you. And thank you everyone for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Thank you for listening or watching this episode of Cloud Security Podcast. This was brought to you by techriot.io. If you are enjoying episodes on cloud security, you can find more episodes like these on cloudsecuritypodcast.tv, our website, or on social media platforms like YouTube, LinkedIn, and Apple Spotify. In case you are interested in learning about AI security as well, do check out our sister podcast called AI Security Podcast, which is available on YouTube, LinkedIn, Spotify, Apple as well, where we talk to other CISOs and practitioners about what's the latest in the world of AI security. Finally, if you're after a newsletter, it just gives you top news and insight from all the experts we talk to at Cloud Security Podcast. You can check that out on cloudsecurity.newsletter.com. I'll see you in the next episode. Peace.